In the lively atmosphere of the Melbourne, with 80 first-class passengers on board, Rizal was able to put his darker thoughts aside, and his diary abounds with observant and amusing descriptions of the passengers and their behavior, believing that he would never return to Europe, and anxious that European languages should not become rusty. He deliberately used them as much as he could.
In the Melbourne, I got to know William Pryor and his wife, Ada. This woman, Ada, is so straightforward, lively and forceful in a masculine way, but that doesn't mean I don't like her.
On the contrary, Ada and Rizal quickly became friends. While passing by the Red Sea, Rizal remembers about reading a book about Southeast Asia and China while he was in Brussels, Belgium.
There is one part of the Borneo inhabited by the Englishmen which is independent of England. The Queen has a council there. It has a status of a protectorate.
The information came from William and Ada, who were residents of Sandakan, then the capital of Borneo, to which they were returning from a long leave. William Pryor was one of the pioneers of Borneo, and Ada Pryor was intelligent and well informed.
While talking with William Pryor, he told me his interest in attracting immigrant labor to North Borneo, which for development purposes is severely underpopulated. I was glad because I was thinking this could be the first step toward the RDLM. I told him I think I might be able to arrange for a fair-sized contingent of Filipino agriculturalists.
The Melbourne made a stop at the port of Singapore, where Rizal and Pryor parted ways.
As we parted ways, I told Pryor that once he can settle down in his new capacity as the manager, I will visit him in Sandakan and study the conditions myself.
The Melbourne, after a violently rough crossing at the South China Sea, brought him to Hong Kong on December 19, 1891. Patients of many different nationalities and races started coming to Rizal, in which he quickly acquired his local reputation, being known in Hong Kong as the Spanish Doctor. Without prior warning, his father Pashano and brother-in-law Sylvester Ubaldo arrived in Hong Kong.
To Blumentritt, main brother, just a line to give you the news that my father, brother, and brother-in-law have arrived here fleeing from Manila. My aged mother is in the hands of the Spaniards.
It will all be remembered that Pashano and his brothers-in-law had been deported to Mindoro at the time of the reduction of Calamba. While being transported into Sulu Islands, all of them escaped. Pashano and Sylvester managed to contact with home only to discover that Teodora Alonso has been arrested for declaring her name improperly, styling herself Alonso when she should have styled herself as Realunda de Rizal. But this was not all. For the second time now aged 64 and almost completely blind, she had been made to walk the whole way, a distance it took her 4 days to accomplish, in the full glare of the tropical sun, her steps being guided by her daughters. The civil governor, seeing her, ordered her immediate release, and was in addition permitted to leave the country. Shortly before Christmas, accompanied by her daughters, they reached Hong Kong. Fasciano had by this time managed to find the family a small house, which they furnished and decorated themselves. Encouraged further by a letter from Ada Prior, he decided to definitely pursue.
For good or ill, men have placed me at the hand of the Philippine Progressive Movement and have attributed to me a certain influence on their aspirations. If Your Excellency thinks that my lowly services could be of no use to him in pointing out to him the country's ills and aiding him to cauterize the wound of recent injustices, he has only to say so, and reposing in his words as a gentleman that my liberties as a citizen will be respected. I will place myself immediately at his command, and Your Excellency will then see and judge the loyalty of my conduct and the sincerity of my word. I have done all I ought, without ceasing to love my country's good, to preserve her for Spain by means of solid policy, based on justice and community of interest.
It was a presumptuous letter. It was barbed. The letter naturally received no reply, but in political circumstances, it was a letter which embodied the truth. Finally, during these months, he at last came to grips with the practical details of revolution. He had discussed it with Galiciano Apicable, Jose Alejandrino, Fasciano, and Basa.
I will never head a revolution that is preposterous and has no probability of success, because I don't like to saddle my conscience with reckless and fruitless bloodshed. But whoever may head a revolution in the Philippines will have me at his side.
Blumentritt, who sensed from his letters that things might be maturing in that direction in Hong Kong, wrote him a letter of warning, entreating him not to meddle in revolutionary agitations, and pointing out that in recent history revolutions against a superior dominating power had only succeeded due to outside support. On March 21, immediately prior to leaving Sandakan, he addressed a second letter to General Dispugol.
The government is prepared and ready to receive them, and I request your permission for those who wish to leave to change their nationality that they may sell such small possessions and depart unhindered.
He sailed in Memnon, a slow vessel plying a regular service between Sandakan and Hong Kong, whence came north of Borneo's provisions of civilized life. Arriving in the last days of March, he found that the acquisition of land for development purposes was governed with definite rules, and that these, unlike rules in Spanish territory, were applied unexemptionally. Any other form of land acquisition would be purely commercial. With boats laid on for him by Prior, he visited various possible development sites, and observed the problems of jungle clearance and human settlement. Prior, doubtless surprised by this insistence on such freedom on British territory, were taken for granted, framed a written request for assurance. The governor was on leave, and the acting governor, L. P. Beaufort, was on tour. The letter was received by the acting government secretary, Alexander Cook, a quarrelsome individual whom Prior was not particularly on good terms. On April 2, Rizal were received by Cook at the Secretariat, where all the required assurances were given, confirmed in writing the following day. Immediately after this interview, Rizal went to see Henry Walker. The Commissioner of Lands was particularly anxious to see a rice-growing population in North Borneo, which was then importing nearly all the rice it consumed, was enthusiastic about the scheme. During Rizal's return in June 26, 1892, he was not the same person as he was when he left. He was the talk of the town, the quiet murmurs of the one who will save the Philippines from the Spanish rule. He was now a threat to the friars and Spanish rulers. During this return, he used his medical capabilities in treating sick Filipinos. He visited all the family left to visit, and did his best in freeing those in hiding, making arrangements with the civil government. He used this time home to gather a group of Filipinos in search for freedom to build La Liga Filipina, which was later deemed doomed due to the friars' efforts, hearing that Rizal had been advancing anti-friar publications and El Filibusterismo itself, which was written by Rizal. This return also had led to his deportation and arrest, due to the alleged anti-friar publications and his writings. Though in his life he had yet to finish the Borneo projects. His return, the threats on his life, and everything that he has endured had not been put to waste. Andres Bonifacio had been greatly moved by his writings that during the announcement of his deportation he founded the Great Katipunan.